Hey everyone, let's talk some KJ Parker. Let's talk some T. Kingfisher. And let's talk some more T. Kingfisher. Why not? They've all been read. Let's discuss. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Through the Pages with Dee. So I've read 3 books in the last couple of days. Thought I may as well talk to you about them, about why to read KJ Parker and why to read T. Kingfisher. So we'll start with KJ Parker. So I read The Devil You Know by KJ Parker. Now what I found out off Alan from the Library of Alexandria is that I could potentially have read the book prior to this, and it's what the fans are calling the Salinonus. Salinus. I can never say that name right, even in my head when I'm reading it. Salinus trilogy. That's what fans have called it. So it's Blue and Gold, it's The Devil You Know, which is the one I've read, and then there's The Big Score, that's last. And I believe these work out as a fan-made trilogy. But because they're all about the same character, Salinus. But I've missed Blue and Gold. I've started with the second. But it's still good on its own. Now, just a little bit about KJ Parker. KJ Parker is a pseudonym for Tom Holt. And Tom Holt is from London, England. I'm from England, so that's an added bonus. He was born in London in 1961. He studied at Oxford and he gained his qualification to be a solicitor. And then in 1995 he moved to Somerset and he lives there currently with his wife and daughter. So that's a little bit of background history on Tom Holt, pseudonym KJ Parker. He's written quite a few different books, this being the first I've read. But what I do want to say is that KJ Parker has quite easily become one of my favourite authors of this year. Hands down. I loved his style of narrative. The prose was fun. I adored this book. I thought it was so good. It's only small. It's only 124 pages, so it won't take up much of your time to read it. I had it done in, say, maybe 7 hours I had it read. But I took it in and I thoroughly enjoyed the story. So what the theme of this story is: good versus evil. Is there such a thing? Will one triumph over the other? As I said, the main character is called Salinus, and he wants to make a deal with the devil. So he has gone to the offices and filled out the paperwork, because it's all very sort of formal and we have forms to fill in. If we want this request, we have to fill in a form. Excuse me. So he's filled out his forms and the unnamed demon has been called in to take this case on. And he then has to go and visit Salinus and see what it is that he wants, if he's happy with his contract, and he's there to make him sign it. And Salinus is a very clever gentleman. He is kind of a scholar. He's also a playwright. He's an author, an inventor, an alchemist, and a con man. So he's quite a person to go up against for a demon of the devil. So there's much conversation in this book. It's all about conversation, really. And Salinus is reaching potentially the senior ages, 70s, early 80s, and he wants to continue to live. So he wants to make a deal with the devil so that he continue to live and continue on with his work. All these experiments that he's got, he wants to continue them. So that he then reads through the contract, eventually signs it, but he's asking strange questions during this. And the demon that's actually come, the unnamed demon, because he doesn't have a name in this book, the demon that's actually come to get him to sign the contract is uncertain as to why he wants to do this. He's a great figure in his own right. You know, he could die and be a happy man because of the influence that he's made. And this demon is himself quite a fan of Salinus. He's read most of his works. He knows a lot of his plays. He's very familiar because obviously there's records kept within the industry of demonic. I don't know the word, the industry of where the demons are, working for the devil. They keep records, vigilant records. They know everything of Salonidas' past. He's not always been a very nice man. There's some things to do with his wife that are a little bit questionable. He's definitely done some robbery in his past. So he's not done some very nice things. And it's questionable as to, you know, who he is as a person. And the demon is very interested in who he is as a person. He wants to know more. He's actually, even prior to meeting Salonidas, the demon, gone to buy one of his books and had Salonidas sign it for him. So this is the relationship that's going on between this unnamed demon and Salonidas. But there's a hell of a lot of banter and a hell of a lot of quick wit in the way that the author writes this book. It's fantastic. It's so much fun to read. All crammed into 124 pages, and it's very dialogue driven. And it's 2 points of view. The way that it's done, it's from the demon's point of view and from Salonidas' point of view, and you flip back and forth as to who's talking and what it is they're thinking about. So you've got the demon, and he's trying to work out what it is that Salonidas is up to, and you've got Salonidas thinking, well, can I outsmart this demon? But it doesn't really go into what he wants to outsmart him with. And it's just quite literally a battle of wits. It's a fantastic battle of wits with humour. It's just great. It's got fantastic humour. It's wrote in a very sort of easy to understand way, very modern day language. It's not written in a past tense or like an old English or anything like that. It's written very current, very easy to follow. So I would say you most definitely have to give anything KJ Parker in the Salonidas trilogy a go. I will definitely be getting the other two, Blue and Gold, and The Big Score. I will definitely be picking those up. And I may even, within that scenario, read Blue and Gold first and then go back to The Devil You Know and then The Big Score. I may well do it that way. So that's KJ Parker, The Devil You Know. Absolutely, for 124 pages. Give it a read. You will not be disappointed. If you like books that are similar to maybe, say, Terry Pratchett's kind of sense of humour. I've only read a couple of Terry Pratchett books, and that was quite a long time ago. But if you like that sense of humour, definitely give this a go. It's right up your street, I guarantee. Promise you, I guarantee. You'll like it. Then I moved on to Kingfisher. KJ, I've got that stuck in my head now. Kingfisher, sorry. That's where I moved on to next, Kingfisher. And I've read these consecutively. Brilliant. Horror-based. Kingfisher is a pseudonym for Ursula Vernon. She was born in May 1977, my year, yay! And she was born in Japan. And currently now lives in South Carolina, I believe. So, why read Kingfisher books? They're just good. She was inspired, actually. Well, the first book is based on The House of Usher, written by Edgar Allan Poe, I believe. But what she decided was that there wasn't enough information within the books about the fungi, the mushrooms. So she wanted to elaborate on that. And while she was sat there thinking, how can I elaborate on this? Maybe do a retelling. She had a thought that came to her about her character, Alex. His name escapes me. Give me one sec. Oh, Easton. There we go. Alex Easton. That's because I'm talking about too many books at once. You should learn, Dee. So yes, Alex Easton. He's the character. That's the character that came to her while she was thinking about the House of Usher. So she started writing this down, the thoughts that she was having, and slowly but surely it created into this character. So she decided to do some research into mushrooms also. Very interesting. I went down a rabbit hole with this now. I read the first book, which is strongly influenced by mushrooms and fungi, and I went down a little bit of a rabbit hole. I'll tell you about that in a sec. Firstly, so we've got Alex Easton. It's a first-person narrative from Alex Easton's point of view, and we have other characters involved where Alex Easton has received a letter from a childhood friend called Madeline, and Madeline has a brother called Roderick, and they are the Ushers. They live in the House of Usher. So he's had a letter from Madeline with concerns, so he's on his way to see Madeline, and he gets there, and when he gets there, Mr. Denton's there, Dr. Denton, sorry, is there, and he's been called in by Roderick, because Roderick is concerned about Madeline's health and her well-being, because she does not look well at all. But the fact is that Roderick himself also doesn't look very well. So we've got these two characters who don't look very well, who seem to be suffering from something, but Dr. Denton can't quite put the pinpoint in it as to what they're suffering from. So he's just as bemused as anybody else is, to be honest. On his journey to their on the journey to their Eastern meets Miss Potter. And Miss Potter is the mycologist. She studies mushrooms. She does artwork of mushrooms. She does literary texts about mushrooms. She's basically trying to get in to a kind of a male-driven area of mycology, and because she's female, she's not necessarily being welcomed in with open arms, but she's very good at what she does. So they end up having a conversation because Easton is staring at some mushrooms, and Miss Potter warns him these are quite dangerous, don't mess with them, they have a smell. So she basically safeguards him on how to deal with these mushrooms. So they sort of pipe up a little bit of a friendship between them, and every now and again Easton bumps into Miss Potter again and they have a chat, and eventually she becomes involved in what's going on at the House of Usher. And that's the basis of the story, really, is what is happening at the House of Usher. Now, if you've read the actual House of Usher, you may well know what's happening. I haven't, so this was brand new to me. So I thoroughly enjoyed it because I've not got any prior knowledge as to the House of Usher whatsoever. But following on from reading this, I think it is something that I am going to, in the future, probably look for and read. But one of the other things in this book is the interesting and different pronouns that Kingfisher chooses to use. She diverts from the standard pronouns that we use and turns them into what is the glacial language, which is va, van, ta, tan, ka, can, and ha, ha. So we changed like he, she to ha or ka or ta. It's a little bit complex to try and understand, but the more you read, the more you'll get used to it. The more you can slip in the missing pronoun and make sense of the sentence for yourself. So it starts off quite difficult, but that you can relatively easily, going through the chapters, sort of come to terms with what it is that she means in regards to the pronouns. So as I say, he was sent a letter, he's gone there, and there are many different weird things there. There's these scary hares, as in like rabbits, but hares, who just stand and stare at you and don't really move in the correct way, and the freaking people like Easton out and Dr. Denton, they're freaking them out, and then everybody starts to have these weird nightmares, and they're affecting Madeline the most. And she seems to be being affected the most within the House of Usher. And eventually it takes its toll and things happen. And then we dive more into the investigation as what is it that is causing this in the House of Usher? What is the problem? Why is it seeming to inflict Madeline and Roderick more? So that's the main crux of the story, is we're trying to find out what's going on at the House of Usher. Is it just simply something to do with mushrooms, or is it something on a more supernatural level? And that's what we're trying to get down to. It's a very, very interesting story. So the rabbit hole, because of the mushrooms that I delved into, and the mycology, excuse me, is that the study of mushrooms. Mycology is the study of mushrooms. And it's the biological, I'm going to have to read this off my notes. It's the biological study of mushrooms, their taxonomy, genetics, biochemical properties, and use by us. And that's the study of mycologists. Fungi is also a source of what we know as traditional medicine, such as penicillin, streptomycin, tetracycline, and statins. I'm very familiar with statins because I have 2 heart conditions and I take statins every single day. So that surprised me to find that one of the potential ingredients in a statin is fungi or mushroom. I was enthralled by that information. So that's the main crux, really, of What Moves the Dead. It's a story of what is afflicting Madeline, what is to some extent afflicting Roderick, how can Easton help? How can he help? What can they do? What can Easton do? Can the doctor help? Can Dr. Denton help? Dr. Denton is from America, and can he help? Then we have Angus, who shows up, which is Easton's kind of. He's called like a Batman in this, but he's basically like the guy who helps him dress and who helps him when he fought the war. And Angus is kind of his sidekick in this, basically, and every problem that he has, and if he needs a hand with it, he usually goes to Angus. And Angus is Scottish, and he's quite a funny character. He's got some quite good lines in the book. So yeah, What Moves the Dead, those are the main characters. It's about what's afflicting Madeline and Roderick, mostly Madeline, and will we get to the bottom of it? What's it going to be? Is it going to be an actual physical thing, or is it a supernatural thing? And it's very good. It's got a definite thriller essence to it. Horror, yeah, in bits. Not the horror that I'm used to, but yeah, in bits there's horror elements. Then we move on to the second book, which is What Feasts at Night. I love these books. They're so pretty. Such a beautiful cover. What Feasts at Night. So we're still with Easton. We're still with Easton and Angus. They're now going back to Galicia, where they're from, back to Easton's home, and this is to help Miss Potter look for some mushrooms in Galicia. She's been to where the House of Usher is, and now she wants to go to Galicia and see what mushrooms they've got. So it's a few days later that Miss Potter shows up. So when Easton and Angus get back to Easton's home, which is just a little like hunting house in the woods, they've noticed that the caretaker isn't there. And it was a bit of a surprise to Easton that he hasn't actually heard from the caretaker. Caretaker's called Cordin, and he hasn't heard from the caretaker. So when they get back to his home, Angus decides that they need to pick a few bits up anyway. So he'll go to the local town. And the local town is called What's it called now? Wolfsay, I think. Yeah, Wolfsay. And so he goes to Wolfsay, and they're actually looking to potentially replace the caretaker and possibly get a cook, because if Miss Potter is going to show up, then they need to show some sort of manners and have people there ready to make Miss Potter feel at home. And apparently, as well, in those times, I think it was around 1890 that this was set, it's not very good manners to have a lady in a house with two gentlemen and it not be kind of a marriage situation. So they want to, stick by what's morally correct and bring at least another woman into the house if they can. So Angus goes to Wolfsay to see if he can find a cook and a caretaker. And as he's going round, nobody in the town wants to entertain the job. They do not want to go anywhere near Easton's home. And they're a little perturbed by this and not understanding quite why. But Angus brings the news back after some questioning and asking, and he's managed to find one person willing to do it. And that is the widow Botizatu. She's the only one, and she's going to bring her grandson along called Bo. They're the only two that are willing to actually come by and do this. And that's basically because they need the money. They're short on income, they need the money, so they're prepared to take the risk and go to Easton's home and work for him for a short period, or maybe longer, but predominantly it's for the time whilst Miss Potter's there. And the time when the widow and her grandson Bo show up, that things start to go wrong again. And Bo starts to become ill. And Easton, because he wasn't there when Cordin died, he decides to go and see Cordin's daughter. And he gets a little bit of a snarky welcome. She's not really pleased to see him. And he slips up and asks her, how did your dad die? And she doesn't answer him too nicely and kind of slams the door in his face. And Easton comes away from that thinking, okay, well, I tried, but I don't really know what's going on. It doesn't seem like she wanted to get into the hows and whys of how her dad died. So he's still none the wiser as to what happened to Corden. And then, as I say, Bo gets ill and he's having nightmares. And now Easton starts to have nightmares too. And they involve a woman. And they're not quite sure who this woman is. So they begin to ask questions. And Angus has some information, but they go to the priest. And the priest gives them more information. And there's rumours and so on and so forth of supernatural sort of law relating to Galatia and what some people in the town actually think that it could be. So I'm not going to divulge too much there, because if I do, it will most definitely give away the story. And it's definitely one you need to read. I did enjoy the first book more than the second, I must confess. I thought the first book's story was far more interesting. The second book's, it's not bad. It's definitely not bad. It's still worth a read. But it didn't catch my attention quite as much as the first. But it's still good. There's still an interesting dynamic between characters. The prose in these books is beautiful, but it's still nice and easy to read. Once you've caught onto those pronouns, it makes it a lot easier, but it won't take you too long. I promise you, it won't take you too long to catch on to those pronouns. Just as I was reading, I managed to find how to change them to the pronouns that I'm more familiar with. But no, that won't take too long. So yeah, it's good. I don't know that I would necessarily consider it horror myself, but that's just because I'm quite a gory horror enjoyer. I like quite full-on horror. This has horror elements, especially in the second book more than the first, I would say. There is horror in the first, but I don't think it's explained as much as in the second book is. There's bits and pieces, but in the second book, the horror element does rise. There is more description of horror in the second book. But I just didn't find that the antagonist hit quite as hard in this one as it was in the first book. That's just my opinion. Look, with every book I review or I come on here and tell you about, just read it for yourselves. Make your own decisions. If you like the sound of what I say, give it a chance for yourself. You can make your own mind up and you can decide whether or not you like it. I did like these. I thought they were good. I thought the first book was far better than the second. Kingfisher's a great writer. I love her style. I love how she writes. Not that I know very much about the House of Usher, but I think she's done it justice. I would say she's probably done it justice. I will know more when I read the House of Usher myself. But as far as I can tell, it looks to me like she's done it justice. I really enjoyed the first book, What Moves the Dead. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was really good. And I did like what the actual cause is that's making Madeline and Roderick poorly. I did actually like the way that went. So yeah, all the books that Kingfisher has wrote are Nettle and Bone, The House with Good Bones, Thorn Hedge, and A Sorceress Comes to Call. And she's got award-winning books such as Digger and Dragon Breath. So she's not brand new by any means. She's certainly a tried and tested author. So give her a go. Give KJ Parker a go. And yeah, that's my thoughts on these books. I thought they were good, definitely good. If I was going to rate them, I would say KJ Parker is definitely a 5 from me, absolutely a 5-star. The first, What Moves the Dead of Kingfisher, I would give a 4.5, and What Feasts at Night from Kingfisher, I would give a 4. But still, good scores, very good scores. To get to a 5, it's got to be something that either makes me laugh out loud or makes me cry or gives me pause for thought, where I need some time to think about what I've just read. So yeah, KJ Parker, my mind went blank then for a second. KJ Parker, The Devil You Know, absolute 5-star. What Moves the Dead, 4.5 stars, and What Feasts at Night, 4 stars. So thanks everyone for watching the video. If you stayed to the end, I really appreciate that. If you would like to, you can like and subscribe, share this video, tell your friends. It just helps the channel to grow, and it helps it to, you know, become more popular out there and gets more people watching it and more aware of my content. And maybe I do read books that people are interested in, and it's just not being seen enough. So it needs to be talked about a little bit more. I don't know. But yeah, if you liked it, please like, subscribe. I will be back on Monday. The filming regime has been a little bit knocked off its axis this week, because my daughter threw me a surprise yesterday. So I wanted to share that with you guys. But next week we should be back to normal with the Monday, Wednesday and Friday. If I'm starting to find that that's maybe too much for you guys and you'd rather see less, I think I'll just change it to Mondays and Fridays and do it that way. But we'll see. We'll just see how things play out. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time through the pages.